Okay, let's unpack this. If I ask you to name the core crew of Jimmy Neutron, you're going to say Jimmy Carl. But the minute I say Sheen Estevez, you probably smile.
Oh, absolutely.
And why is that? Because as kids, he was just pure, unadulterated, chaotic joy.
Exactly. When we revisit that whole era of Nickelodeon, you see these characters who were designed purely for disruption, the sidekicks, who were too loud, too unpredictable.
They were often the breakout stars.
They were. But here's the thing that's so surprising. When you look back at Sheen now, through adult eyes, that chaos, it takes on this really complex, sometimes even uncomfortable dimension.
That's the challenge for this deep dive, isn't it? We've been looking at sources that analyze this childhood icon, and they all suggest that Sheen wasn't just a funny character. He was secretly one of the most brilliant, most layered, and, well, potentially most misunderstood characters on the entire show.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to find out why the kid we all thought was just this hyperactive, lovable idiot was maybe, in fact, a study in chaotic brilliance.
Yeah, we're going to try to shortcut past the simple nostalgia. The goal here is to explore the engineered comedy that made him so effective, and then we have to confront the subtext that only becomes visible once you realize the behavior that was played for laughs.
Right.
It actually reads as a profound need for support.
Yeah.
We're aiming to understand how a character who was pure comedy for 12-year-olds now feels so intensely human and complex for us as adults.
So let's start with the mechanism. Because Sheen's humor, it wasn't just random noise. It was a perfectly designed system of disruption.
It really was.
He was, essential to the show's success, and that success was based on this three-part dynamic that governed every single plot.
It's the perfect dramatic equation. I mean, think about it. You have Jimmy, who is the driving force of logic, scientific structure, all measured innovation.
Okay.
Then you have Carl Wheezer, who is the total emotional counterweight. He's all anxiety, caution, physical reluctance.
And then you have Sheen.
And then you have Sheen. He is pure, unadulterated impulse, the anti-logic force.
He wasn't just a friend. He was the necessary catalyst. I mean, Jimmy could invent the perfect machine, but without Sheen's impulse to push the button with the skull and crossbones,
Or to touch the radioactive goo.
or to wish for something just truly monumentally stupid, there is no plot.
Mm-hmm.
He existed to ensure that any logic-driven experiment inevitably veered into spectacular, necessary disaster.
And that's the definition of his comedic genius. He had this incredible dramatic function. He was the character you could never trust to be still or quiet, and that guaranteed the pacing, the unexpected turns. What's so fascinating is that this impulse didn't just manifest physically. It was channeled through his obsessive interest. We have to talk about Ultralord.
Right. As kids, Ultralord was just funny fandom, the intense collecting, the action figures, the constant quoting. But through the adult lens, the sources all highlight this is far beyond a simple hobby.
Oh, way beyond.
The intensity of that devotion, it reads so distinctly as a hyperfixation.
Absolutely. Think about what a hyperfixation is. It's an intense, often consuming focus on a topic that can come at the expense of, other responsibilities or even the ability to shift your attention.
And Sheen is the ultimate example.
He doesn't just like Ultralord. His entire worldview, his moral code, sometimes his actual money. It's all defined by this one fictional franchise.
I remember an episode where he uses his mother's credit card, or maybe it was his dad's, given the whole mystery there,
Who knows?
to buy a limited edition Ultralord figure. And it's clear his family does not have the disposable income for that. It's funny because of the dedication, but now you watch it and you think, this isn't cute. This is a deeply disruptive interest that's impacting his life.
And his performance was so essential to selling that. The delivery of his lines, the volume, the sudden shifts in focus, the hyper-dramatic physicality, it all served the purpose of making sure that when Sheen spoke, the whole scene just stopped and veered onto his tangent. His voice acting, the timing, it wasn't just noise, it was calculated sonic chaos. And that's what made him the definitive breakout star. It was because he was so completely unpredictable.
So, okay, we've established he's an engine of chaos, but let's tackle the biggest surprise from this deep dive, for me at least, that this idea that he's not the dumb one.
Right.
The whole joke of the dynamic is that he's the idiotic foil to Jimmy's genius. But the analysis suggests he is profoundly intelligent, just in this messy, unstructured way. He's chaotically smart.
This completely reframes the character. If we measure intelligence purely by academic structure or, the scientific method, then yeah, Sheen fails.
Yeah.
But his genius operates entirely laterally.
Laterally, I like.
He embodies this unpredictable genius.
Yeah.
He doesn't adhere to Jimmy's step-by-step logic, which means he's capable of these leaps of insight that a logical mind would never permit itself to make.
He solves problems by accident, but they are still solved. Jimmy will spend days on these complicated equations, and Sheen will just blurt out a solution based on some loose correlation to an Ultralord plotline.
And somehow it works.
It works. He improvises solutions that Jimmy, who is so constrained by his own rigidity, would never even consider.
And this is where the character just shines as a non-traditional intellect. He uses emotional energy, sheer will, found materials, not textbooks. Think about the times Jimmy's gadgets failed. What was Sheen's solution? It was usually hitting it, yelling an Ultralord battle cry at it, or inserting a piece of random trash. And when that random emotional input works, it shocks everyone, including the audience, because it feels so undeserved.
I remember one time Jimmy's shrink ray was stuck on a destructive frequency, and Sheen fixed it purely by screaming at it with perfect pitch.
Yes.
Because he was mimicking a sound effect from his favorite Ultralord cartoon. He didn't understand the physics of it at all, but he intuitively understood the application of sound waves completely by accident.
That is the essence of chaotic brilliance. He's the definition of the kid who can't sit still in class or pass a standardized test, but who, if you gave him a broken lawnmower in an hour,
Could turn it into a hovercraft.
exactly, using duct tape and just pure determination. That's not stupidity. That is a different kind of applied brilliance that doesn't fit into the neat little geniuses box. He's invaluable, even if the group spends half their time wanting to, exile him to the nearest alien moon.
Well, speaking of exile, that brings us to the core shift in perspective this deep dive really illuminates. We've enjoyed the comedy, we've acknowledged the brilliance, but now we have to talk about the discomfort.
Yeah.
Because when you view Sheen's core behavior through an adult lens, those traits, they stop being punchlines and they start suggesting a much harder truth.
This is the uncomfortable part that the sources spend a lot of time analyzing. As kids, we laughed at his hyperactivity, his inability to focus, his emotional volatility.
Yeah.
But as an adult viewer, the analysis suggests this reads very, very clearly as potential untreated neurodivergence.
We're talking about severe impulsivity, profound difficulties with emotional regulation, constant attention struggles, and those obsessive interests we already covered. The show played these traits exclusively for laughs.
Right, his inability to conform was the joke itself.
Yeah.
And the crucial pivot here is that the adult perspective completely shifts the emotional tone. Suddenly, you're not watching funny hijinks. You're watching a child who seems to be operating without the necessary scaffolding and support, and who is consistently ridiculed for things he genuinely seems unable to control.
That makes the whole butt of the joke dynamic genuinely painful to watch now. He is constantly dismissed by adults, his teachers are always yelling at him, and his friends, especially Jimmy, often treat him like a mascot or an annoyance.
Rather than a person whose feelings actually matter.
Exactly. Look at the consistent social misreads. Sheen's enthusiasm is always maximized, even when the situation calls for caution or silence. He miscalculates social cues because his impulse is just too strong. The joke is always on him when he screams something inappropriate or touches something dangerous. The adult viewer is just left feeling this profound discomfort, watching a child repeatedly face negative consequences for his lack of regulation.
And this leads us to this telling gap in the narrative. The almost total silence around his home life. For a character so loud, his background is so profoundly quiet.
And the source material flags this as a critical component of his volatility.
It has to be. We know almost nothing concrete about the Estevez household. We know he met his dad once, a very brief encounter.
Right.
And his mother is virtually non-existent in the show's run. This absence of a stable, visible foundation is so telling. For a child displaying such extreme emotional and behavioral swings, that lack of parental presence or intervention suggests a massive void of stability.
You combine that total lack of a foundation with his extreme emotional volatility, and the character dynamic it hits completely differently now. He might have been seeking attention through chaos because he wasn't getting the structural attention he needed at home.
And nothing, absolutely nothing, emphasizes this core problem quite as perfectly as the existence of the spin-off series Planet Sheen.
Yes, the spin-off, which, when you see it through this critical lens, becomes a profound cautionary tale that just accidentally exposes the rough subtext of the original show.
Think about the premise. A child with profound impulse control issues, who is obsessed with rockets, is left unsupervised long enough to not only access a high-tech rocket, but to hijack it, launch it, and become stranded on an alien world.
The show meant it as a comedic plot device, but the analysis points out that the real-world consequence of a child with Sheen's challenges being ignored would be exactly that.
An eventual spectacular and dangerous failure of supervision.
It's the ultimate consequence of his lack of regulation. It wasn't just a messed-up science experiment in Retroville. It was being literally launched out of the framework of society. He needed support, and instead, he got an alien planet.
So we shift from critique to synthesis. What does this deep dive into the source material ultimately give us? Sheen Estevez is no longer just a funny cartoon character. He becomes a powerful symbol.
He is absolutely the misunderstood kid in every classroom, the one who is loud, distracting, brilliant, annoying, lovable, and exhausting all in one package. He represents the kids that teachers and parents they didn't have the tools to handle, and who therefore got shunted to the side as the clown or the problem child.
And he represents the complexity of intelligence that just doesn't fit the expected mold. He was never the hero because he wasn't the gifted or genius archetype. He was the kid who was too passionate, too weird, and who solved problems in a way that scared the grown-ups.
He was overlooked in favor of the neat, tidy genius of Jimmy.
Exactly.
The bittersweet truth, then, is that while he is still one of the funniest creations of that era, revisiting him as an adult reveals this layered character whose chaotic nature was a symptom of something much deeper than just a good running gag.
He's a mirror for how we, as a society, interpret and handle energy that we can't easily categorize. Chaos is so often just a mask for a deep, unchanneled need. We only gain the complexity, the sadness, and the full appreciation of his chaotic brilliance when we matured enough to stop just laughing.
And start observing what was happening to the child underneath the Ultra-Lord costume.
That's it.
That reframing of a character you thought you knew inside and out, that's the ultimate aha moment of this deep dive. We've leveraged these adult analyses to move beyond simple nostalgia and realize that sometimes the greatest comedy has a deeply human, sometimes painful root.
The duality of Sheen Estevez, the accidental mastermind versus the child needing emotional stability, is what secures his place as such a rich, complex case study decades later, far beyond the initial cartoon run.
So we'll leave you with this final thought to mull over. If the sources suggest that every friend group, fictional or real, has someone who brings chaos, what does the adult understanding of that chaos as potentially layered, brilliant, and vulnerable change about how we interpret the side characters we see in new media today? Are we still just laughing at impulse, or are we now asking what underlying emotional or cognitive challenge is really going on beneath the surface of the joke?